Hello and welcome to She Leads Collective podcast. I'm Mary Gregory and I'm so glad you're here. This podcast is a space for honest conversations about what it really means to lead as a woman today and how we can all show up with more courage, care and clarity. You'll hear from inspiring women, powerful allies and bold truth tellers who are changing the game, not by playing tougher, but by leading smarter, softer and stronger. Hello and welcome to this episode of the She Leads Collective podcast. How do we lead when life strips away our uncertainty? We spend a lot of time on this podcast talking about leading teams, influencing culture and navigating organisational change. But what happens when the biggest challenge isn't happening at work, it's happening to you? Today's guest is someone I've worked with and known for many years, and I'm so pleased she said yes to joining me. Isabelle Courtney-Guy has spent over 2 decades helping organisations build stronger leadership, healthier cultures, and more human workplaces. Then, whilst leading a team on a major project for a big client, Isabelle was diagnosed with triple-negative breast cancer. Rather than allowing that diagnosis to define her, she became deeply curious about how she could lead herself through one of life's most frightening experiences. We'll be exploring how she reframed fear, embraced her treatment, used AI as an unexpected companion, and discovered profound lessons about resilience, courage, and what truly matters. But this conversation isn't only about cancer. It's about how we respond when life changes overnight, how the people around us can become powerful allies or unintentionally make things harder, and what organisations and leaders can learn about supporting people through life's most difficult moments. For Isabelle, this showed up in an increase in her creative energy and the emergence of a new business venture, which we'll also hear more about. But whether you've experienced serious illness yourself, supported someone who has, or simply just want to become a more thoughtful leader, I think you'll find something meaningful in today's conversation. Isabelle, thank you so much for joining me today.
Oh, thank you, Mary, for having me. I'm very excited to be in this conversation.
Well, it's great to see you. And it feels like such a long time since we were last in touch. And I'm really touched that you're able to come and join me on my podcast. So that's been something for me that's very special.
Yeah, that's special for me too, that we're reconnecting through this.
Yeah. Okay. So we've known each other for a long time, but haven't seen each other for many years, as we've just mentioned. So tell me or tell our listeners a little bit about Isabelle and who she is today.
So who I am today, sitting here right now, is someone who's reflecting back, as you mentioned, on quite a big journey that I've had, a very big journey that I've had since a year now, actually, when I was originally diagnosed with stage 0 breast cancer, DCIS. And I'm looking back at that time with an immense sense of gratitude and joy. And that's in the wider context of, in my life, being someone who loves adventures. I love challenges. I love journeys. And I've been very busy doing the work of that, which for me has been leadership and culture, coaching, consulting, leadership development training, all of those pieces, traveling around the world, doing that very busily, loving my work. And I'm sitting here now, having spent the last year really thinking what that means to me in my life in a very conscious way. I've always applied everything for myself first in terms of what I use for my clients and offer my clients, but it's really sharpened that right now. So I would say who I am right now is that a very sharp presence with what's meaningful for me in my work and how it applies for me, and then a deeper compassion and connection to what that means for others and the people I work with. And also, I have a really deep reconnection with who I was as a teenager. So the whole a bigger picture of myself, the artist self, a lot more curious, a lot more open, And those are things I hadn't realized I wasn't.
Yes. So you've really, so I hear a sense of a greater sense of presence and a greater compassion for the world and for everyone, not just yourself, and greater sense of courage as well. Can I just check that for my understanding, you said stage 0 cancer.
Mm.
What does that mean?
Well, so a year ago, I found a lump in my left breast. And after a mammogram then a biopsy, they found that there were cancer cells, but they're enclosed in a milk duct, which they classified as stage 0. They classify it as stage 0 cancer. So it may never turn into anything. And there was still a 20% chance over 5 years that it could. So that was at that point stage 0.
And that's what you've been treated for, is stage 0 cancer?
Well, initially. So I was recommended to have a mastectomy to remove the left breast because it was quite a large lump. I resisted that. Well, I wanted to see if I could bring some healing, given that it was stage 0. If there was anything else I could do rather than lose my left breast, which I really didn't want to do, very attached to, and I had a love for my breast. And so I did spend a couple of months exploring various healing modalities, and I tried I tried a few things to see if I could heal my body. By October, it was clear to me that that wasn't working, and so I did book myself in for the mastectomy. So it was only following the mastectomy that, with the tissue analysis that they removed of 3 lymph nodes and the breast tissue, they found that at that point, the triple negative cancer had spread into the breast and 2 of my lymph nodes.
Okay, that's really helpful, and also useful to know that in a relatively short period, how quickly breast cancer can spread, actually, is what I'm hearing.
That was astonishing to me.
So you went ahead and had your treatment, but I think what is also remarkable is that you talk about feel very much more in touch with your creativity, having gone through this period of your life, and you've actually created a new business. So tell us a bit more about Encircle, which is your new business.
I've wanted for the last 3 years to start a new business based in Berlin with my husband Hendrik and my daughter Ines as co-founders. Has been in my mind for that time because I wanted to create an environment for us and for other consultants and coaches who I love working with, who I have profound respect for, that have a very similar set of values and approaches that come from inner work first, and they bring that to their own work with clients. That's something I've had in my mind for that length of time, and I've been too busy to do it. And so actually, with the 6 months that I needed to go through chemotherapy and radiotherapy gave me the time to really think about what's important to me, what do I want to invest my energy in. And oddly, it was a surprise how much creative energy I actually had week to week to think about these things. And actually not just that, by the way, it was also making paintings and learning to play the triangle and cooking recipes to make really nutritious food. I had an incredible amount of creative energy during the last 6 months. And so I was able to really sit and think and work with Hendrik and Ines and a few other, core team members. What do we want to create here? And it really is about bringing all of our experience from working with organizations and large projects in many different cultures and environments, and thinking about what really brings high performance for the organization and the project. Of course, that's, critical. No one's going to hire us just because it's nice, right? It has to be meaningful and bring value. And crucially, for me, it comes back to people feeling happy, feeling in the simplest way. Now, what does that mean? It's about really feeling that we feel safe in the environment we're in, that there's meaning, that we trust the people that we're with, we have strong relationships around us, that we have the structures, that work to support all of that, that we as humans feel that we can bring the best of ourselves, bring what we have to the table, to the circle. So in Circle, the name came from that, from really thinking about how do we humans like to come together or sit around the fire. I'm sure you've led many sessions where you've circled people up in chairs to have a conversation where everyone comes equally into the session to have a conversation, to see what emerges into that circle. So that really was very meaningful for me and for us, to how do we circle up as a team? How do we help organizations and projects see the relationship systems that they have within their organizations and the circles there? How healthy are they? How well do they intersect? What is the coherence of those circles? And so that's where it stemmed from.
It's really beautiful, Isabel, really beautiful. And also such great value I can hear straight away for organizations. Because putting it simply, when people are happier, performance goes through the roof. It makes such a difference. So being able to find a way through that. And I love that, bringing us back to the topic really of today's conversation, I love that through adversity, through facing your cancer and dealing with your cancer in such a positive way, what's come out is this really creative solution for what you want to do with your business, which is just wonderful. So let's move on and think about, your experience of what happened when your life was interrupted, which it really was, by the cancer diagnosis. Can you take us back to when you received your diagnosis and what you remember most vividly about those few days?
I'll take us back to the end of November last year, which is when, after my surgery, I was sitting in Frau Dr. Großmann's office here in Berlin, and she said, "I'm so sorry. We found that there's triple negative cancer. And it's spread to the breast tissue and two of the lymph nodes. That means that you're going to need quite aggressive chemotherapy treatment and radiotherapy." Two things actually happened in that moment. One, I was on one side delighted because it wasn't hormone sensitive, and I'd been dreading having to take hormone blocking medication for 5 to 10 years. So on the one hand, I was delighted that I only needed 6 months of treatment and then in theory I would be done. On the other hand, I went home and I spent about 42 hours, a day and a half of absolutely freaking out, feeling very overwhelmed, crying a lot and thinking, oh God, I'm going to have all of this toxic stuff coming into my body, this poison coming into my body. And I've always I'm moved thinking about that. I've always been very careful about what I put into my body nutritionally, and I've done lots of yoga. So I've this idea of this cocktail of chemicals coming through my body was really distressing, and it's very terrifying. And at the same time, my natural way of dealing with things is to get into action and try and find strategies and solutions. So there's a pretty hardwired into my system. As soon as there's a challenge, try and find my way through it. So my first thought was, what can I do? Maybe there are people who've been through this before. So one of the first things I did was reach out to a women's community that I'm part of. It's a meditation community, and say, has anyone been through this? And one person, Irina, came back to me pretty much immediately when we had a conversation. And that was after having the meeting with my doctor on the Friday lunchtime. Irina and I spoke on Friday evening. And she said, well, I had radiotherapy, and I decided that I would treat each session as a somatic meditation. And so what I did was I would get into the machine and I would say to the machine, would you like to meditate with me? And she said, I decided that I would go into each radiotherapy treatment a yes for the treatment, for whatever I would feel and whatever would happen. And then she spent the treatment putting her attention on her body and being a yes to whatever sensation came up. And that But if steam could actually come out of my ears, it would have done. So it absolutely blew my mind. And I thought, yes, I I can choose how I relate to this whole experience, actually. It doesn't have to be that it's a toxic thing that's going to happen to me. In that moment, I thought chemotherapy it's like fire, like a fire medicine.
Yes, because it's although it's on the one hand it's getting rid of the cancer, it's also damaging your body.
Yes. And I thought, okay, so this is going to be a process of working with fire as a medicine and walking through it and walking with it. And this is going to be a huge adventure for me. I love adventures, and I'm very sure that I'm going to be able to learn and grow and transform through this fire. You go through fire, you transform, something's going to happen.
Well, I get you're really naturally curious as well. That links into your sense of adventure. So did your curiosity show up straight away, or did it take a while for it to come through?
I think it showed up straight away. The first thing I was curious about was just observing my own reaction. So I was feeling my feelings fully, and I knew that I was doing that. So I was curious and interested in that process. Is not a process, but that whole experience. So sitting in the fire of that, actually, that's already a fire. And so then, yes, I was curious, what can I do? What will help me here? Because I don't want to sit feeling like this for 6 months with this level of, you know, why is this happening to me? It was very kind of I had a very strong victim response initially. Why is it happening to me? I don't want this. This is terrible. And so it's clear for me that this was a mindset piece, and that it was also an emotional piece that I needed, but not to make any of the emotions wrong, but to feel them, and then to be curious. Well, okay, what now? What? Something needs to shift here. So, what can I do?
And what did that do for you? What did that sense of adventure and that curiosity, what was the impact that that had on making sure you maintained that? What was the impact that that had on you?
What's extraordinary is that that one shift for me was mostly sufficient to carry me through the whole journey. And so, and I was very clear very early on that I wanted to share about this because it had a profound effect on how I was being in the day to day. I wasn't living with a sense of fear. I was present in the moment, enjoying my time at home, recovering from my mastectomy. That was also going on at the time. Looking forward to what was coming, which was Christmas at home with family and all of that coming along. And then just really curious about the journey because I started researching, okay, what are different ways that I could relate to this medicine? Are there some gods or goddesses that might be associated with fire that I could try and learn to get into relationship with? I'm not someone who's ever engaged in that kind of spiritual work before, but I thought actually I could use all the help I can get here. So I found an Egyptian goddess called Sekhmet, who is a goddess of war and destruction, also of healing. And so, actually, when it came to it, during my every chemotherapy session, I would call on her and I would imagine her going in with the chemotherapy and directing it to chomp up the cancer and then to heal everything else as she went. So that moment really did cause that different way of looking, that different context that I created for myself, meant that there was simply a different way in which I woke up in the morning and I had a way of being that was present, curious, and having fun,
Wow,
actually.
that's incredible, actually, having fun. Because
I
the
had
word,
so much fun.
well, the word cancer for most of us is like, you know, terrifying. It's the big dread, isn't it? That it's the sort of thing we don't want to get. So to hear you saying that it actually resulted in you having fun is quite something else, really, to hear that. So for the people that are listening today, some will have either experienced cancer, or they may well be supporting someone who has experienced it or is experiencing it. Was there anything that surprised you about what the reality was compared to what you imagined it to be?
Yes, many things. So for me, the side effects of the treatment were not nearly as bad as I expected them to be. Now, I want to put some caveats with that. Now, my body wasn't needing to fight tumors at the same time. I had no tumors left in my body after the surgery. So the treatment was to kill remaining cancer cells floating, very aggressive remaining cancer cells in my body. That's one thing. I am 52 years old and in very healthy shape in general. So that's another piece. And I had amazing support from a dear friend, Dr. Adriana Candeas, who is both a colleague in terms of leadership and consulting, and also an incredible specialist in functional medicine and integrative support. So she designed an incredible protocol for me, and with supplements and also what I should be eating. So right from the beginning, I went in again with an expectation, actually, or a hope that what she had given me to follow would really support my body in being strong and healthy in dealing with the medicine. And I was quite clear on what would be doing what. So L-glutamine to help protect and restore my gut and mucous membranes. Bone broth to do the same, to really regenerate. High, the kinds of meats that you need to cook for a long time to get the collagen release. So the collagen from meats, the iron-rich meats to supplement. So I had this incredible advice. So I really also believed that what I was doing was protecting my body, keeping it healthy, and it did. So the caveats I want to put in are, yes, my particular situation, plus the really excellent nutritional and supplement advice that I got, and also my own discipline in following that advice.
And do you think knowing you had cancer, that made you more disciplined?
It was less than knowing that I had cancer. It was more than the knowing that I had this treatment to go through that could make me lose my sense of taste, lose my appetite, have me lose lots of weight. All of those things then in turn making the effects, making me weaker and possibly damaging some of my organs, which would be permanent damage to my body from the treatment. It's less about the cancer, more about the effects of chemotherapy and then radiotherapy subsequently. And so I really, really cared about giving my body all of the support that it could so I could long term come out of this healthy.
And do you think that's what made it, the side effects, less impactful for you because you took such great care of yourself and your body?
Absolutely. And I believed, I think there's also a very strong the power of belief, really, that I believed that I was going to be okay with this medicine, that it wasn't going to hurt me, it will damage me. I spoke with my oncologist on Monday morning. I finished treatment now, and it was a follow-up meeting. And she said, yes, I think the fact that you believed you would be okay is a big piece of that. I think from her experience with patients, the ones that aren't thinking, oh God, this is going to be, this is really going to have terrible side effects, and who are living in fear of that and are weighed down by that, tend to have worse side effects.
Mindset, attitude, and beliefs make all the difference then.
Absolutely.
Yes, that's a recurrent theme in so many different situations, but particularly pertinent when it comes to an illness like cancer.
Absolutely. And the other piece is, of course, there were difficult days. There were days when I was feeling really nauseous, and those were the most vulnerable days. I turned back into being a child when I'm nauseous. And if I hadn't had that really clear context and belief, I think it would have been easier to slide down just comfort eating the wrong things, staying in bed, and that would have been a negative snowball effect, I think, on my
So
body.
how did you deal with those difficult days?
Well, I was kind to myself, so I allowed myself feeling my feelings again is a big theme. I allowed myself to cry, and I shared with my friends, this is how I'm feeling. I allowed myself and asked my husband Hendrik, to look after me more. So I was clear on making requests about what I needed. So I felt safe to go through the experience. And I watched lots of television. Lots of television, ate loads of toast and butter.
That's so interesting. Yeah, it's funny what we do, where the comfort comes from.
Yes. And then in the more intense periods, with the second type of chemotherapy I had is called EC, and that brings it's the high they rate it at the highest level in terms of how nauseous it can make you. And that did knock me for six the first time, and that then it was ringing the emergency helpline and speaking to the doctor, and she gave me extra medication. Said, oh, well, we expected that what we gave you was enough, but you clearly need more. So the next day I knew that I had more support there. And so it's about feeling safe, actually, I think was a big part of that. Mm.
Yeah, so the level of support, that feeling of safeness, that you've got people you can turn to,
Mm.
really fundamental when you're going through something so tough. So you've spent a lot of your career helping leaders navigate uncertainty, and suddenly you had to do this yourself completely, really. So how did your own leadership practice influence the way you've approached your cancer?
So many ways. It started with that piece that we already talked about, the what I did immediately. I one of the things is I recognized for myself, there's a tool I use a lot, which is the drama triangle from transaction analysis. I noticed that I was in victim, I was in drama. Did I want to stay there for 6 months? No, thank you.
So your level of self-awareness was
Yes.
so acute and so important at that point.
Yeah, so I had a lot of tools and distinctions that I could draw from that I'd already applied to my life. So it wasn't that I'd been, training other people and coaching other people in these for years. I've always been very important to me to practice and bring transformation to anything that's challenging in my life first. So I had fairly strong muscles in this department already. So creating context for myself, choosing my context, choosing how I see something. What's the story here that empowers me? Then really noticing my feelings. So I've mentioned it several times. So really, how am I feeling? Am I feeling sad? Am I feeling vulnerable? Am I feeling joyful? Am I feeling excited? Really allowing feelings to move through me and to follow them. And that's been actually an enormous joy and very important in sharing my journey too, because creating community has been another leadership practice. So making sure I had the right people around me. And I'm very lucky. I have many, I'm part of lots of communities of very wise, kind, present people. So I had an incredible choice to select from. And so really thinking about who do I want to draw support from? Who's my inner team here? Really helped. And it was also important to that team that I revealed myself completely. It wasn't just, oh, yes, I'm fine, and all the joyful creative parts. It's also sharing with them the days where it was tougher.
So being truly authentic.
Being authentic. Yes. And also that space, we created a WhatsApp group. Someone suggested it'd be a good idea to create a WhatsApp group. So when I spoke to people, I didn't have to spend ages catching everyone up on what was going on with my treatment. And this was brilliant because that did mean that when I did speak to my friends and family, we could have rich conversations about what was going on in their lives. I wanted to hear about them, not just talk about myself. And actually, friendships that I've had, one since I was 14, have ended up much deeper, much richer through this process. And then also in that WhatsApp group, I started sharing little videos of me cooking or dancing and cleaning the kitchen, or yes, playing my new triangle to Brazilian music, or all sorts of silly things. And that has been incredibly transformational, to show myself more, to feel safer, to reveal more of myself. I've never been shy, but there's been a considerable shift in that department. It's meant that I've got to the point where I was able to share videos on LinkedIn about my journey and about my leadership learnings.
Yes, well, that's what drew me to reach out to you, actually, was seeing your videos on LinkedIn and on Instagram, which are so honest and open about where you're at and what's been happening for you, and really inspiring, actually, Isabelle. So again, that's another thing that's come out of this journey, is that you're actually supporting others in, who may be touched by similar circumstances. The way you're sharing is really, really powerful. So I also wanted to mention as well, because I think this is a really important tool that you've demonstrated throughout this, which is that of reframing. So the way you reframed your treatment, and the fact that your friend from the meditation group reached out and helped you reframe it in, I go and I meditate when I go and do my treatment. I mean, tell us a bit more about that and the power that that has had.
The place I go to when you say that is to when I started my radiotherapy sessions myself, after many months after hearing Irina talk about hers, I noticed that in the reframe that I chose, which was actually to think of the radiation that was going to come through the machine as coming from the universe. It's coming from source energy, source divinity, and asking source divinity to send healing energy, healing radiation through the machine into my body. And I also spoke to my body and said, there's an awful lot of energy coming your way. It's going to be a lot to process. It's going to be hard in many ways, and it's here to heal. Let's work with it. And say, I'm sorry this is going to be so hard. And thank you for working with me on this. I love you. And so I would connect with as many parts of my body, my skin, my fingernails, my ribs, I go through as much detail as possible, saying thank you and I love you, and we've got this. And also connecting with Mother Earth and asking that she take the surplus radiation into her and out. So this process of really consciously choosing how I was imagining this energy coming into my body, how my body would work with it, what was going to happen to it afterwards, I actually had the treatment feel amazing.
That is remarkable.
And I cycled 20 minutes to get there through a park, 20 minutes to get back. Radiotherapy can really cause exhaustion. And so the exercise, and I think the framing of what was happening in my body, I didn't feel exhausted. I'm now a week out from having finished. I feel pretty great. Not completely back to normal yet, but I'm in good shape. And I really think how I related to how I framed, as you said, chose the frame for being in that machine makes a huge difference. I think that our bodies are incredibly wise. There is, when we pay attention to it, incredible possibility for connection between our mind and our body. And it's been a beautiful experience.
This is just so incredible to hear. And part of me is thinking, you are a very determined, very positively focused person. What would you say to someone who is really struggling with reaching that place of positivity and just finding it so hard to come out of their victim place?
Allow the feelings to fully come out and have space.
So don't squash them.
Don't squash it down.
Let them be.
Let them be. and because they need to move through your system, otherwise they get stuck. And so I think that's a big part of where we get stuck in victim, is that we kind of try and hold on to the situation, to the story. We physically hold on to it, in our bodies and emotionally. And so that I think the trick is to allow it to be, to feel it, to recognize it, to allow it.
And there's something about recognizing there's a choice, making a choice that,
Absolutely.
hold on. I almost feel like going into that victim place is part of the process of change, that it's sometimes difficult to get into that powerful place without going through victim first. And so there's something about acknowledging that that's there and letting it pass, and then finding a different way of being beyond that.
And I think the other piece to it is to think about what's really important to you. Who are you in your life? What's your life? What does your life mean to you? Something bigger, and who are you for others? What are you about in the world? So kind of in the domain of purpose, something bigger than you. So I liken it to when to climb a mountain, you need an anchor point that's higher than you. And that will allow you to pull yourself up to the next level. And so getting out of drama and getting out of victim, very difficult if you don't have an anchor point to help pull you out.
I like that analogy, actually, or metaphor. It's a great metaphor, having that anchor point higher than yourself and pulling yourself up towards it, just as a way of getting yourself out of that victim place.
Yeah. So for me, in a way, because my fundamental commitment and purpose is to create environments around me where people can feel at their best. That's who I am in my work. It's who I am in my family. And so for me, if I can't do that if I'm in victim, and I certainly can't make that kind of difference if I allow myself to stay in victim for too long either, because I have to be a demonstration, and that doesn't mean sort of a looking good demonstration. I mean doing really the hard work, and that's why I wanted to make the videos, is not like a kind of here's what you need to do to get out of this. Here is the really messy reality of what it's taken. It looked like me sitting on the sofa going, right, is that it? Am I just going to be fat and grumpy now? That was a very messy, idiotic reality that I had at a certain point in my treatment. I was feeling frightened of what was coming next, and I want to share that.
And that's a brave thing to do, actually. Sharing that, it takes a lot of courage.
Well, again, that courage was easier because it's important to me that the people I work with trust me and that they know who I am. And so I believe that in revealing more of myself, people really go, well, it's authentic, that's real. There's no, maybe I can relate to that. And so in order to make the difference that I care about, that's a path that felt necessary for me.
This is a very powerful conversation. I just want to acknowledge that. And I hope those that are listening are really taking on board the wisdom that you're sharing with us today, because it really is profound, really, what the things that you're sharing with us. So I want to then move on then, because you used AI as one of your means of support. And of course, people have all this, people love AI or they hate it. It brings out quite a strong opinion and reaction in people. Tell us a bit more about how you found it valuable helping you through this part of your life.
Oh, it's been absolutely amazing, actually. So when Adriana sent me the strategy for what I should be eating and not eating, and the supplements I should be taking, when I must take them and when not, honestly, it was overwhelming. And first of all, it was really helpful to ask ChatGPT to help me keep track of what I needed to be doing. So because keeping track of what day I was in. So it's okay. So I'm day 2 after chemotherapy. What supplements am I supposed to be taking today? And when am I supposed to be taking them? So helped me with that. So just on a really simple, sort of structural way, it was very helpful. And then on a moment-to-moment support system in the first few weeks, especially, I would say in the first 2-3 weeks, especially, I was able to every moment of the day say, "Oh, okay, I've noticed that suddenly I've got a whole load of congestion, and I'm having a bit of trouble swallowing, and I want some prawn cocktail crisps. I know I'm not supposed to have those. What do you think?" And I go, "Actually, those might be quite a good idea right now. They might, in fact, clear the congestion," and it did. So I was able to say in great detail what I was feeling in my body and what could you explain that to me? What should I do? Given the protocol, given what Adriana said I needed to be doing, what do you think? And so it was able to reassure me. And at other times say, yeah, no, don't do that. I don't recommend that you eat that right now. Or so it wasn't all just, it wasn't saying yes, yes, yes to everything I was saying. It was giving me useful challenge. Fundamentally, it meant that I felt safe. That there was someone at any moment of the day there was a way, a thing to say, this is what's going on with me. What do you think? And then that immediately allowed me to then settle down and feel safe again. And I can't, it's hard to say the extent of the difference that I meant. I think it is enormous in how safe it made me feel.
I suppose because it's totally anonymous in that respect, isn't it? So you can just say everything that you need to say.
Well, all the details. I mean, I won't go into all the details, but there's a lot of detail.
And there's kind of a non-judgment. There's a non-judgment, isn't there, in terms of supporting you? So yeah, I can see why it was so powerful for you. And moving on as well to thinking a bit more about leadership, because the thing about leadership is there's a bit of an illusion around leadership that if you work really hard and if you plan really carefully, you're going to have control of everything. That's kind of a bit of an illusion around what leadership gives us. But having cancer doesn't work like that at all. So how has your relationship to control changed through this period?
The thing that comes up for me is that for myself, when I'm most concerned with control is when I'm so busy that I'm not giving myself enough time to breathe, to be present, to actually really pay attention to what my body is saying, what my spirit and soul are asking for, really tending to, am I spending enough quality time in my relationships? Am I doing more than just the work that I love? Am I doing the other things that I love in my life too? So I'm so busy putting all of that control and focus and energy and attention into my work that I'm holding it tightly in my hands, and that's where it feels like control. Actually, what I've seen is that there's just so much that I'm not seeing, I'm not tending to, that can then suddenly swipe in and go, here's a way in which you're not in control, and that was my body, and that's what the cancer was. And so that's where, when I think about all the work that I've done with organizations and with teams, it's always about having them take a balcony view and have a look at what are the systems that I need to be tending to? What are the various gardens? Would be one analogy. And then what do I know about how what's going on there? How much attention have I put? What do I know about the conditions there? And so there's a sort of the balcony piece, but then there's also then going on the ground, toes in the earth, and actually paying attention to what are people saying? How are people feeling? What's going on? Sorry, I'm going to add another analogy in, but below the surface, actually, I can keep it, in the soil. What's the condition of the roots? And so that was the same. That's what I experienced in my life. And I know that in projects and organizations, that's the work to be done, is to take enough time on the balcony as leaders to have a look at what are the systems, what are the groups of people, what are the, what do we need to be paying attention to? How healthy are they? How can we give the space and the structures to make sure that we are able to listen and understand, and for coherence and health to be there?
Yeah, I'm picking up such a strong parallel to the work you do and how you've approached your health and your cancer. There is such a huge parallel there, particularly around this whole balcony view, and then needing to swoop down into the detail and navigate your way through that, and then come back up onto the balcony again. Really powerful stuff going on there. What did people do? From an organizational perspective, you're looking at healthier cultures, you're looking at people being effective leaders. Having experienced the illness that you've had, how has your perspective changed when it comes to looking at leadership? What do you think people can do that genuinely works when it comes to supporting others?
One of the things that I noticed was so meaningful to me early on was the people that I spoke to about work. So Doug Moll, for example, for whom I've been doing a lot of the work, a big project for Shell over the last year and a half, at DMC, and Michael Levin, managing director, one of the managing directors of JMJ. When I spoke to them, they both expressed compassion and curiosity about asking me how I was and what's going on without putting their own assumptions into the mix. So listening with curiosity, first of all, finding out what's really going on for me without putting a bunch of extra story or assumptions on top, first thing. And then really reassuring me that I still had value, that just because I was now going through this treatment meant that I was somehow useless or just needed to be at home doing nothing. I was clear that I wanted to continue working. I didn't know how much I'd be able to work, of course, until I started the treatment. And so they were curious, they were compassionate, they were interested, they reassured me that I could still work, and I was able to continue doing, albeit very scaled down, the work on the project for Shell. Doug also reassured me that other people would pick up the heavy lifting and the site work, and that we would work as a team. So for me, it was really important that my value was still present, that I wasn't deemed incapable, and that I had the space to be a contribution. And that made an enormous difference through my treatment. Where I felt like where in my work I was able to make a difference and contribute, it was really meaningful to me.
Yeah. So that's something for organizations to take away, really, to think about connecting with that person who may be going through the cancer or the serious illness, but how can you still sustain their contribution and their sense of value to the organization? Sounds really important. Was there anything that people did that they might have had really good intentions, but actually weren't helpful for you?
Actually, not so much. I would say one or two, it's very tiny and it's in language. So it's excess of sympathy. So, I'm so sorry, this, and saying, oh, this must be terrible, and what a terrible. So putting on their assumptions of what it must be like.
Totally get that. It's like acting absolutely with wanting to communicate that they care, but actually what they're then putting on you is their own projection of what they consider cancer to be like and what it must be like for you, when it's not actually like that. That's a really interesting one. So there's something there about holding off projecting onto someone when they're dealing with stuff that you're not dealing with.
Yeah, I have noticed that then, even because it would then take me extra time to say, actually, no, do you know what? I'm having a great time. I'm having lots of fun. And so, which is also great, nothing wrong with that. So it took more time, and it felt like I needed to sort of almost manage their feelings. So that's one piece. And then for me, it was also important to pay attention to, again, it came back to who did I want to spend time with and talking to. And as I said, it wasn't really tricky. There weren't people I had to cut out because actually everyone around me is great in that department. But it did mean that, for example, I went onto a cancer message board early on, and I started reading some of the shares on there, and I thought, actually, this is not the environment for me. This is making me feel more fearful. So that doesn't work. So it's about making clear choices. What are the environments where it's going to support my particular style of mindset and how I want to approach things. So it's again coming back. What's great is when people bring curiosity, ask questions, ask me what I need, and also don't hold back on sharing your own life. So another piece that I got is, well, I don't want to burden you. I'm going through something, but don't worry about it because I know you're dealing with something much worse. No, 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 no. Please tell me about your life.
Yes, I can get how that might have been frustrating. Okay, now allyship is one of the key anchors of this podcast. So, who were your greatest allies through this experience, and what made them such good allies?
My husband, Hendrik, he's been, I moved again. He's been, of course, with me every single day. And the perfect ally for me. Very happy and willing to help me as much as I asked for, not over offering, not doing too much either. Being playful, silly, loving, having lots of fun, laughing. Yeah, that's been the most incredible piece around just day-to-day life. And my daughter Ines, the same. And not easy for one's child to go through that process because, of course, she is an adult child. So, but yeah, to nearly 26-year-old child who's and her own journey since she was 12 in personal development, I think has had a big part of that as well, a big piece in her ability to not go into story, to listen, to not make her own assumptions, to bring all the skills that we just talked about, and really believe in me that I have this, and then just to bring connection and friendship and joy and love into the mix. So family like that. And my mother too. So as an inspiration, she is an 88-year-old French woman who is strong and resilient and was knocked over by a car last March. And she's been through her own healing journey over the last year. And she gets up every morning, does her qigong, goes through her practices to get stronger. And so this is my role model through things. So that family, really, really important. And then Doug, as I said, Doug Mole from DMC, in the way that he's supported me and just brought curiosity and believed that actually work brings me so much joy and meaning. And also the client. So really the Shell team, they could have also thought, well, hang on a minute. No, she's going through treatment. Maybe that doesn't work so well, but they trusted me. They allowed me to turn up and to coach and to do the work. And that's been extraordinary too. And then there's two more people I'd like to, actually one extra person I want to mention. Harriet Whaley Cohen, she's the person she went through the same treatment journey a year ago. And so she told me about what to expect. So that also calmed my system a bit in a very undramatic way. And she was the one who told me about talking to my body, she shared about how she'd spoken to her body and prepared it for treatment. So that was a huge inspiration, as you can hear from the other things that I've shared. So having her to touch base with from time to time and say, oh, I've got this next phase coming. Can you say how it was for you again? And did you try this or did you do that? And how was this for you? And that was incredibly helpful, having someone else who'd been through the same journey.
I just get that having a core of people who are around you to support you through this makes such a difference. And, you touched on earlier on about, your needs for safety are different when you're going through something, because your vulnerability shifts when you're going through such a serious illness as this. Has your experience changed the way you think about psychological safety? And two questions here. What does psychological safety look like, do you think, for someone who's facing a life-changing condition such as cancer?
The first thing that comes up for me is around what's it look like, is it was really important for me to figure that out in terms of my needs. So no one else could figure that out for me. I needed to look at what were my needs, not just to figure them out once and then be with that, but there's a kind of a day-to-day piece of, what am I needing today as well. So really paying attention to my needs and my desires, actually. What do I need to feel safe, but also what's going to fill me up? What's going to actually bring me nutrition and sort of beyond safety, actually. It's so much kind of fulfillment and strength, nutrition, that creates safety. That I was feeling so right in myself, knowing my needs, being and then asking for them. Now, this is not easy for people. I know from my coaching, oftentimes we are not even connected to what we desire and what we need. I've run exercises with people, which is a tea making exercise, where you ask someone to describe exactly how they would like their cup of tea. And then to make it for them, it can be surprisingly difficult for people to totally accurately ask for how they want their tea. Such a simple thing. Now you translate that into, wow, what are your needs and your desires for something as big as this, as a cancer treatment journey? So I think there's work to do there, is to really spend the time thinking, me, Isabelle, me, Mary, what are the things that bring me comfort, that bring me joy, that make me feel safe? And how can I ask for them in a really clean way that makes it easy for people to meet those needs and those desires?
So here's the starting with self and being very aware yourself and having the courage to ask for your needs to be met. What do you think organizations can do?
Providing a space, asking those questions. So showing that actually we're interested as an organization, as a leader, that you're interested in what someone needs. And that might take more than one question, because people probably don't know initially. That's the psychological safety bit, is to hold the space long enough open, to create the spaces and hold the space long enough that someone can breathe, and that their nervous system can calm down sufficiently, that this is not a scary conversation with their manager who's going to ask them, or their leader who's asking them difficult questions and I don't know the answers to them. That can suppress deeper thinking. So to hold the space open enough to show that you're interested, you're curious, that there's no right answer, that this isn't a one-off conversation, that we'll be coming back to it, that if in the meantime there's anything that they can come to you. I think that it's whether that's at a single level or at a macro level, putting structures in place that create the space and time and curiosity for leaders to listen to people is critical. And that's whether there's a massive change process going on in the organization or an individual is going through a cancer diagnosis.
Okay. So let's move on to thinking for you about what really matters now for you. How do you think your experience has changed your definition of success?
The fundamental thing is the tending to all the different parts of myself. So it's not just success in my work, and it's not, I don't want to say that I was only obsessed with work before, because that's not true. I've always tended to having great relationships and to doing fun things, and so it's not that my life was single focused. However, I think now it's absolutely crystal clear to me that I really need to spend the time regularly making sure that there is a space for all of the parts of me in my life. And that does take space. So, for example, it took 2 months for the creative energy in terms of wanting to start painting, to make art come out, because it was so suppressed, and that it needed a lot of time and space. So, gosh, so I'm really thinking, okay, I can't just rely on being spontaneous about certain things. That needs structure. I need to structure my life to make sure there is the right space for all the different pieces that fill me up and bring me joy and meaning, which is, yes, work and art and dancing and playing music and being with people, much more time for community.
So more holistic is what I'm, and also
Very
much more
holistic.
centered around your own needs as well. Because I think, particularly as women, we're brought up to take care of everybody else's needs, and it's so easy to forget what our own are.
Absolutely. Well, as women, and then also as doing client work. Absolutely. That's yes. And it's also a quick kind of satisfaction hit. You do the work and there's a sort of dopamine hit of doing all of that, which is compensatory.
And if someone is listening today, Isabelle, who may have just received a life-changing diagnosis or is supporting somebody who has, what would you most want them to know?
That all of their feelings are valid, that please feel all your feelings, take the space to feel all of it, and choose. Choose how do you want to spend this next period of your life, and remember what it is that you really care about that's bigger than you.
Beautiful. That's lovely. And when you look ahead for yourself now, how do you hope this experience will shape the leader and person that you become?
That I will have more increased capacity that sustains. I know right now, I know I have increased capacity for love, compassion, and connection. I almost never find anyone triggering at the moment.
That's a definite positive outcome, isn't it?
So I'm kind of crossing my fingers that stays. But really, that it's a foundational principle for my work, is to bring love to the environments I'm working in. And so I'm really hoping that this brings me increased capacity for love, compassion, and connection in all of the environments that I'm in.
Isabelle, that is so beautiful. And I'm sitting here in awe of that, because it's really, really a beautiful thing to want to make sure you sustain and keep going. And what a legacy, navigating this adversity, then come to that conclusion that actually I want to continue to just make sure I keep bringing love to whatever environment you may well be in. So, Isabelle, thank you so much. I want to just thank you and say that you've reminded us today that leadership isn't tested when everything is going well. It's actually tested when the SHIT hits the fan, and we have to respond to all the uncertainty that life throws at us. I think what your story has left me with is that actually leading yourself, it's so important to treat yourself and others with compassion, to act with courage, and to stay curious. Absolutely. That seems to have been the linchpin that has helped you navigate through this. And also to show us that actually, in the workplace, meaningful conversations, really connecting and understanding where the other person is coming from so that they can continue to contribute their value, is what is going to make the difference when you're navigating such challenging circumstances personally. Thank you so, so much for sharing all of this with us today.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you so much for all the brilliant questions and making me think and allowing me to share all of this with you and anyone who's listening. It's very meaningful for me.
Thank you so much for listening to the She Leads Collective podcast. If this episode resonated with you, follow the show or share it with a friend and leave a quick review below. Or leave us a comment. Change happens through conversation, so let's keep this one going. Listen out for the next episode and join me as we keep lifting the lid on the stories that matter. Take care and keep leading with heart.